Well, it looks like award season has officially started. Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Remember, if you love film, gaming, or television content, please consider clicking that subscribe button because today I want to talk about the 2022 Game Award nominations. So, let's get into it. I think in terms of general impressions, it was a pretty solid lineup of games. I would have liked to have seen a little more variety with some of the nominations. It just seemed like the same few games kept getting nominated for everything, and I want to dive into that a little bit later with one specific category. I also thought Jeff Keighley wanted to get these nominations out in record time because he was reading these so fast, I barely had any time for the nominations to really sink in. Anyway, I won't be talking about every single category because that would take like 5 hours, but I'm going to talk about quite a few of the categories that I was really interested in, as well as providing my predictions. So I think the first one I want to talk about is most anticipated game. It has always been a weird award because it is all dependent on a game's marketing rather than its quality. How many games have we seen that have had the most shittest marketing but end up being an incredible game, or vice versa? I mean, look what happened to Cyberpunk 2077. But overall, I did like these nominations. I'm pretty excited for all these games except for Legend of Zelda, which may be a bit of a hot take, I know, because for most people, Breath of the Wild is a lot of people's game of the year in 2017, and some of people's favorite game ever. It's just not a game that clicked with me, and I mostly won't be buying the second one because, to be honest, I really barely use the Switch, and I just don't think this game will entice me to go back.
Not interested.
The rest of the games, Hogwarts Legacy, Final Fantasy XVI, Resident Evil 4 Remake, and Starfield, are all games that really excite me. And for me, I would personally vote for Hogwarts Legacy because as a massive Harry Potter fan, this is kind of a dream game for me, and I really can't wait to play it. In terms of what I think will actually win, honestly, it is really close. I can see all of these winning except for Starfield because there is some skepticism there. So I think I'm just going to say Hogwarts Legacy. There is not one single person I have talked to that is skeptical or isn't excited for this game. So I think it will take home this Game Award. The next category I want to cover is the newest one added this year, which is Best Game Adaptation, which is one that I'm really glad they implemented because we are getting more games adaptations in terms of films and TV shows than ever. And by the looks of it, it doesn't matter whether it needs to be a TV show or a film to fit this category. I have not engaged with some of these nominations. I have not seen Sonic 2 yet or the Cuphead show, so I can't really speak on those. I have seen a few episodes of Arcane and Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and I thought they didn't work a whole lot for me personally, but I can understand why those shows are massive hits. There was also the Uncharted movie, which I have seen, and as a massive Uncharted fan, I thought this film was a crime and is still one of my least favorite films of the entire year. I honestly hate it with a passion, and I am just going to quote Kratos here when talking about this film by saying, "Do not be sorry, be better." Alright, horrible impression aside, I think in terms of what will win, it is honestly a bit of a battle between Arcane and Cyberpunk Edge Runners because people are really passionate about both these shows. I think if they both came out at the same time, Arcane would win, but Cyberpunk really has a chance due to recency bias. In terms of my prediction, I'm going to stick with Arcane, and I honestly hope the next year's lineups in this category will be a lot better because I'm not really passionate about any of these nominations. With Best Family Game, I only really wanted to talk about this category because LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga got its sole nomination here. I think that is what I mean when I say I would have liked to have seen a more diverse range of nominations because I think that game could have nabbed a couple nominations. If you are disagreeing with me on that right now, all I have to say is you must have forgotten the hype that game got when it released. I mean, everyone was playing it and everyone was really excited about the release. And there are plenty of categories that are definitely above the quality of your average LEGO game. It is up there on my fiance's list of games of the year, and honestly, I'm happy to see it get a nomination for her sake. This category, however, has always been dominated by Nintendo games, and that really didn't change this year, as the other 4 nominations were all Nintendo games, I'm pretty sure. And honestly, I still think LEGO Star Wars could nab the win here, and it definitely is my pick. However, watch out for Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope, because that has a solid shot as well. For me, if there was one category in all of the Game Awards where you should bet all of your money on a winner and you are pretty much guaranteed a win, it would be Best RPG. I mean, are we even going to debate whether Elden Ring is going to win this category or not? One of the main things that makes people really love this game are those role-playing mechanics. Everyone is talking about the build diversity, the subtle upgrading, and how the world encourages you to experiment with these mechanics. As someone who isn't a crazy fan of Elden Ring, I think that this is pretty much my personal pick in this category as well. A similar statement can honestly be said about the action-adventure category. I would be genuinely shocked if anything other than God of War Ragnarok won here. I think this has some competition, and I will talk about the other nominees first. I haven't played enough of A Plague Tale Requiem yet to cast a massive judgment on, but what I have played, it's just pretty much a bigger version of the first one. And when I am looking at the criteria, I think it is weak in one of those elements. Let's take a look at that criteria together here. The website states, for the best action-adventure game, combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. I think the traversal and puzzles are okay in Plague Tale, but to me, the combat has always let both these games down. This is mainly a stealth game where you don't really have too much of a chance if you get caught. I've always thought that was fairly cheap, and I think that lets it down from winning this category. The next nominee here is Horizon Forbidden West, which I think would genuinely be the runner-up here. I absolutely love the elements this requires to win. Horizon's combat is seriously some of the best this year and builds so much off from the first, and utilizing the DualSense is a genuine game changer with the bow and arrow. The open world puzzles are fairly simple, but I found them enjoyable, and the stealth ties into the combat fairly well. It's a little cliched when you're hiding in the tall grass, but I honestly enjoyed it quite a bit. Next up is Stray, and here's the thing. I love that game, and I'm glad it got so many nominations, but it almost has zero combat. However, the puzzles and traversal could be some of the strongest in this entire category. I mean, do I need to say more with the traversal? You're playing as a freaking cat, and it is incredible. It feels like a cat, it moves like a cat, and it's just so satisfying just to walk around in that game. Tunic, the other nomination, I have not played yet, but I think it's the type of game where it's just lucky to get nominated. God of War Ragnarok, however, definitely deserves the win because it is masterful in all 3 of these elements. This game has so much to traverse, and it integrates with the puzzles, which I think are perfectly balanced. They are difficult enough for you to sit there and really think about it, but not so difficult that you're going to be sitting there frustrated for hours. And I think that balance is really incredible. And the combat, I mean, come on. It is so brilliant, and in some ways improves over the top tier combat the last installment had. The next category I want to talk about is innovation in accessibility, which is a great category that is all about reaching a wider audience through accessibility features. I think this is really important, and I'm really glad that games are really focusing on these elements now. I also really like the nominees here. The first real contender to me is God of War Ragnarok. All PlayStation exclusives are really starting to make it a priority to include these features, and God of War Ragnarok is no different, and I'm really happy at how excellent those elements are in this game. I was also quite happy to see the Quarry get a nomination here. Those features are great in that game, and I'm glad that we just saw a nomination for something in that game. I would have liked to have seen a little more nominations for the Quarry because I just love how fun that game was. Anyway, I'm glad to see it here. I don't think it will win, but I just wanted to mention it. The one game I think definitely will win this category, and I know people are going to get really mad because as soon as you utter the words of this title, people just start going crazy, and that is The Last of Us Part 1. Hot take here, I do think that game deserved more nominations because it is just such a great game to play. We have nominated remakes in the past that don't innovate as much as this, so why not? Anyway, this is The Last of Us Part 1's single nomination, and I honestly think it will win this category. The second game won this category 2 years ago, and I think this version just builds off that and improves on those accessibility features, so why not give it the win? Now, we have the category that may have been the catalyst for this entire video being made, and that is Best Performance. This is such a stacked category, and I'm so glad to pretty much see all of these nominations here. However, I am usually kind of disappointed on the actual Game Awards day because sometimes they just brush over this award, and it sucks because I think that this is one of the most major awards in the entire show. I remember 3 years ago now, Mads Mikkelsen won for his excellent portrayal in Death Stranding. I don't know if he was in attendance or not, but even a Zoom call would have sufficed. I think they began realizing how much of a disappointment that was because they did take things back to the way they were supposed to be last year.
It should stay that way.
The first nominee here is Ashley Birch, who plays Aloy in Horizon Forbidden West. To be honest with you, despite the fact that I like the first game, I would not have nominated her for that game because Aloy is quite a bland character. In the second one though, I think they really do an excellent job of giving her more to do and making her a more dynamic character, and I think she is now deserving of that nomination. We also have the voice of Amicia in A Plague Tale, Charlotte McBurney. This is one of the nominations I'm a little lukewarm towards because I think that Amicia is a really annoying character in my opinion. Don't get me wrong though, I don't mind this game, but both Amicia and Hugo annoyed me so much in both these games, and the voice acting does play a part there. The two I really want to talk about though are the two that I think are definitely the most deserving of the win and nominations. Firstly, I just want to talk about my guy here, Sonny Solchich, finally getting some recognition for being such a talented actor. His role as Atreus in both these games is some of the best child acting ever. And if you haven't seen it yet or haven't heard of it, check out Jonah Hill's directorial debut, mid-90s, which stars Sonny Solchich, and he's amazing in that too. It's almost a shame to me that this kid seems like he wants to be a pro skater, which is fine. Chase your dreams, that's awesome. And I'm sure he's really good at that too. But I think that this kid is a world-class actor, and I think he'll really go far. The one person I think, however, that is the most deserving of this and will probably win it on the day and redeem their loss in the 2018 Game Awards is Christopher Judge as Kratos. The voice is so iconic. There's really nothing like it, and to this day, people are still saying,
"Boy, this way, boy. Slow down, boy. We do what we please, boy."
His loss to Roger Clark, who honestly is great as Arthur Morgan and could have won any other year, is a crime to me. As Christopher Judge is perfection in this role, I think he will win, and it will be a great moment to see him get on stage and finally accept that award. Next up we have Best Audio Design. I think it's a pretty clear-cut race here, but I'll go over all the nominees anyway. The first is COD Modern Warfare 2, which I do hear that the COD games all have excellent sound design. I wouldn't know, I don't play COD, I'm not into COD, I'm not good at it. Moving on. Next up is Elden Ring. That game sounds phenomenal. All the bosses sound so diverse and excellent and just really capture the vibe of this world that FromSoft made. If you have great headphones, I'm sure this thing sounds incredible. Next is God of War Ragnarok, who I think will ultimately take home the award. I've been playing that with the Pulse 3D headset, and it truly sounds like God. It is phenomenal. The first time you see the World Serpent in this game, the sound just knocks your socks off. It is so damn good, and it just captures that epic vibe that God of War has. The next nominee is Gran Turismo 7. I like this game, crappy microtransactions aside. I'm a big fan of this series, and I still think Gran Turismo 7 is probably the best racing game that I've played since Gran Turismo 6. The sound is a massive part of that. The cars sound absolutely great, and it really helps with some of the races I noticed. Those audio cues are great with how you just navigate around the track, and it was really useful, and I think that was a really innovative way of including the sound. Horizon Forbidden West was another game I played with a Pulse 3D headset, and that game also sounds incredible. The sound of the machines, the sound of the world, the sound of Aloy's footprints just going through the snow, it all just sounds excellent. But I do think God of War Ragnarok takes home the win because, to be honest, there's nothing that sounds quite like it this year. With best score and music, I'm going to be really quick here because I really think that this is a battle between two games. The other three, congratulations on your nomination, but I don't think you're going to win. The first major contender here is Elden Ring. Once again, as someone who's not a crazy fan of Elden Ring, that music is freaking phenomenal. I mean, it still gets used. It's iconic in a way that when someone uses music for a hard game, they use the Elden Ring music and everyone knows where it's from, and I think that's going to live on. So that score is really deserving, and honestly, I think it may win because it is excellent and I think everyone just loves it. The next serious contender is God of War Ragnarok, which builds off the last installment by just being this really powerful score that just makes you feel something. It's also an iconic score, but I do think Elden Ring will take the win because God of War Ragnarok does use a lot of elements in its score as the last installment, while Elden Ring is a completely new one. Next up is maybe one of the most competitive categories of the whole award show, and that is Best Art Direction. I mean, all 5 of these nominations are really deserving of a win, and I'm interested to see how it's going to unfold and who will eventually get that win. The first nomination is Elden Ring, and I mean, while that game is not graphically all that impressive, what really makes it look visually impressive is the art direction. I mean, it is so diverse in terms of its biomes, the bosses, the enemy design. It just enhances the game so much more, and there's really nothing that looks quite like Elden Ring, so I really have to credit it for that, and it's well deserving of a nomination. Next up we have God of War Ragnarok, which, I mean, that is concept art come to life. This game throws so much at you visually within the first 5 hours, and then it just keeps piling on more and piling on more, and it's just mind-blowing the amount of incredible art direction that this throws at you. It doesn't let up once, and I absolutely have to applaud it for that. Next up we have Horizon Forbidden West, which you could probably say is the least impressive of these categories because it is a pretty typical open world, but the game is absolutely stunning and is still deserving of a nomination. But I think half of it goes to how great the graphics are, and half towards how great the art direction is. Next up we have Scorn, which I hate this game, to be honest with you. I cannot stand puzzle games where you're just sitting there for hours and hours and hours just really not getting anywhere. It's not my type of game. I'm really dumb when it comes to game puzzles, and I like them pretty simple, and Scorn just does not hold your hand in that regard, and I just honestly deleted it after 20 minutes. However, the art direction is pretty good. Even everyone who reviewed the game, who might not be so warm towards it, just kept going on about how it's inspired by H.R. Geiger, and it looks like Alien, and it's very impressive that way. I totally get it, and it is deserving of a nomination here. Next up we have Stray, which is another game that just throws so much at you in a short period of time in terms of its art direction. I mean, each of the 3 main areas that you go to are all so diverse and look incredible, and the last one especially is just this creative explosion, and that's all credited towards the art direction. I think, to me, what I would like to win, probably God of War Ragnarok, because as I said before, it just throws so much at you and it just keeps going, and I have absolutely loved that art direction. I loved it in the last one too. And to be honest, I think it will win, but it is razor thin. I mean, Elden Ring could win. I think Scorn could win. And Stray has a slight shot too. It's going to be crazy. And as I said before, I really can't wait to see how this category is going to unfold. Next is another major category, Best Narrative. I think this is one people pay a lot of attention to and can be quite controversial at times. I'm only going to talk about 4 of the 5 nominees because I have not played Immortality and I probably never will. The other 4 I have played though. I think so far what I have played of A Plague Tale Requiem, it's an okay enough story. It doesn't really capture too much of my attention, but it definitely follows the first one in being a solid story that is engaging enough. Next is Elden Ring, which I'm going to be honest with you here, I don't think deserved a nomination here at all. And that could be same with all of From Software's games. The stories in them are honestly quite terrible. Yes, there's lore, and I know it is quite compelling, but I really think they gave this a nomination just purely because of George R.R. Martin. It really just doesn't do much for you. If you're going out and playing the game, odds are you're not going to understand a single part of this story. You get little disjointed pieces of dialogue in the opening scene, and that's it. Most people know the story because they'll watch a YouTube video about it. And yes, it is quite compelling, like all of FromSoft's games, but is it really a great narrative? I don't think so. Next is God of War Ragnarok. I mean, come on, if this doesn't win, it would be insane. God of War Ragnarok easily has the best story out of any game this year. And I think a lot of people think that you go into these games wishing for an excellent story. That's a massive part of the experience. And this game is getting so many 10 out of 10 reviews, almost as much as the last one. And the story is a massive part of that. I've played about 10 hours of it, and I have been so engaged with the whole thing. And I really don't think it's going to let up. I think it's going to be phenomenal all the way through. And I'm just so excited to finish it. Horizon Forbidden West also has a okay enough story. It's definitely leagues better than the first. It does start off a little bit slow. It does have some pacing issues. But after about 10 hours of open world exploration and some meandering around, it really starts to focus, and when it does, it is a great story, to be honest, and I'm happy I played through it, but ultimately, God of War Ragnarok is taking home that win, no questions. Best game direction, I think, will ultimately be the telltale sign of who wins Game of the Year. The direction in the 2 major contenders here is pretty phenomenal in different ways. The first is Elden Ring. People absolutely adore that game, and Miyazaki's design choices and direction is a big part of that. The way they choose to do this open world design and have it innovate in a lot of ways is all direction, and it's definitely deserving of a nomination. Once again, even as someone who's not crazy about Elden Ring, I can see the merit of it getting a nomination. I did enjoy it enough to see that. God of War Ragnarok, I think like the last one, definitely deserves it. It does a lot of the kind of one take thing that the last one did, and it has that real film quality to it. I just love that. I mean, I don't think a film could do what God of War Ragnarok does better than God of War Ragnarok. It really innovates, and it somehow improves in a lot of ways over the last installment, and that is definitely saying something. Horizon Forbidden West, congratulations on your nomination. I don't think it has a chance of winning. I do like the game direction though, especially with the open world design. I think it was honestly my favorite open world of the year. I'm sorry, Elden Ring. But I just love the little subtle changes that happen when you complete a quest line. These changes happen in the open world, and it doesn't really point it out to you, but when you notice it, it's really cool the way the environment changes and those subtle differences get made. And I think that was an excellent choice to make direction-wise. The next nomination here is Stray, which I think the direction is excellent. They chose what could have been a pretty gimmicky game in playing as a cat and actually turned it into something really incredible with a real poignant story. And I think the direction is a big part of that, to not make it some cliched little game that you play for like an hour and then you just like whatever. You play this game for about 6 or so hours, you play through it and you're engaged the whole way through because the direction is just that good. But at the end of the day, it comes down to Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok. Man, what I really want to win is God of War Ragnarok. But I think Elden Ring is going to win, and I'm going to be a little bit disappointed. I'm not going to lie when I see that. But I think a lot of the design choices and the direction from Miyazaki has just been so overwhelmingly positive for a lot of people. And I think that's going to get it over the line and give it that win.
You made it. Suit up, you're on the team.
Next up, we have the big one, Game of the Year. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with all 6 nominees here, except for one, which is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I know that they probably wanted to nominate at least one Nintendo game, and I don't really understand why they picked that one. But at the end of the day, I know it has a pretty passionate fan base, and it is what it is. Congratulations on your nomination. You're definitely not going to win. The same thing could be said for games like Plague Tale and Stray. They're really the AA games that could. I'm really excited to see them get that recognition that they deserve for really making the most out of the limited budget and resources they had and creating something pretty incredible. And it's good to see that representation there. Next is Horizon Forbidden West. It is definitely in my top 6 games of the year, 100%. As I said before, it is my favorite open world in any game this year, but I don't think it has a single chance in hell of winning this award. It's really between the massive clash that everyone has been predicting all year. It was pretty obvious, really, but we have Elden Ring versus God of War Ragnarok. Elden Ring, it's a game that everyone absolutely loves. They love how it innovates in its open world, its bosses, its world design, its art direction. They really see it as a flawless game. It's one that I didn't mind, but honestly, I didn't like it as much of FromSoft's other games. I much prefer Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro, which actually did win Game of the Year. God of War Ragnarok is hands down my Game of the Year. You know that in all of these categories, pretty much, I've said God of War Ragnarok should win. And I really think that. I really think it should sweep and win Game of the Year. That's that. Because it is phenomenal. As I said before, I've only really played 10 hours of it. But with a game this incredible, I really like to savor it instead of just beelining through the story, getting the platinum, and that's that. I really like to take my time and just savor this game because I know I'm not going to play anything like it within the next 2 years, really. But at the end of the day, with my personal feelings aside, I think fans of Elden Ring, you're going to be really happy because I think that's going to win Game of the Year. And I think that really boils down to the fact that voters will say, well, we gave God of War 2018 Game of the Year. Let's give something else a shot. Elden Ring is a new IP that just took the world by storm for months and months and months. And people are still talking about it. People are still engaging with it. And people absolutely love it. And yeah, it's going to win. There's no real debate about it. Honestly though, am I going to be pretty disappointed to see that win? Probably. If you've seen my review for that game, which is one of my really, really early videos, the quality is probably not that high. I haven't watched it back, but I already know it's probably not going to be the best video anyway. But I wasn't too high on that game. I'm pretty sure I gave it a 6 out of 10. Because while there were moments that I really, really enjoyed, I just didn't click with it like I did with Dark Souls 3 or Sekiro or the Demon's Souls remake. It just didn't work for me. I liked some of the individual mechanics. I love the world design, the art direction, the open world's pretty cool. But as a whole, it just didn't work for me. God of War Ragnarok to me fires on all cylinders, delivers this knockout story with some of the best characters in any game ever, some of the best art direction, some of the best traversal. The world building, once again, is top tier. The sound is like God. It is just incredible. I really think that is the game that deserves the win, but I'll completely understand if Elden Ring takes it home here.
And did, twice. You saw the plaque, right?
Anyway, thank you so much for watching the video. Tell me in the comments below what your predictions are for the Game Awards this year. Are you happy about the nominees? Do you think there should have been a more diverse range of games? Or are you happy with just how they are? What do you think of how Jeff Keighley approaches the Game Awards year after year? I think it's a really great show, and it's really starting to feel like the Oscars of the gaming industry. And I'm really glad that it exists. Anyway, let me know in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.